What is up? What is happening? It's week 4 of the DFS year, or of the NFL season, I should say. And we're here for talking the DFS main slate for week 4. In case you're not familiar with how we do this, we're breaking it down on DraftKings. I'm your host, Ryan Alexander _W. Ryan Williams is the moniker that I go by, my government. And then Kevin Steele's government, his Twitter handle at FantasyRad13. It's episode 60, Kev. We're out here. We're trying to make the money. How you feeling?
Pretty good. Just tilting a little bit because Jordan Howard just scored his second damn touchdown. On this Thursday night slate, had ran about 10 lines tonight on the showdown. And Jordan Howard just scored another touchdown. So, there's that.
His third, actually, Kev. His third. So
that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he had that receiving touchdown. That's right.
Oh my God, it's unbelievable what the slates will do to us, man. It's ridiculous. Doesn't feel good at all. Doesn't feel good at all. But Kev, we're here talking about the main slate for week 4. After this week, we'll be a quarter of the way through the NFL season, which is just crazy to think about, flying by as it always does. We've waited so long for it to be here. And, I don't know how it's been with you, Kev, but it's been, a weird one to start for me. It seems like I'm always almost there with the plays, and then just one or two, I don't want to call them mistakes, but maybe mishaps of players that I kind of missed on or didn't get enough exposure to. Cough, cough, Mike Evans last week, Keenan Allen last week, just so tilting. But in cash, I've been doing really well in the double ups. Only have had one rough week, and that was week 1. So back-to-back weeks here, I'm hitting my double up lines. But GPPs have been definitely, it's been brutal. I know week 2 was brutal for a lot of people, losing a lot of money there. And then week 3, even last week, just the way some things kind of fell with some injuries that we had as well too. It's just been a rough start to the season. So we're talking about week 4 here and how we can take advantage of some things. Kev, talk to the people. How's the week? How have the weeks been going for you? And what are you excited about here for week 4 as we get into the main slate?
Last week was a lot of fun. That was one of my it was actually my best slate of the year. Last week I finished, and I had one lineup that finished in the top 50 of an early only slate, and had another lineup that finished right in the side of the top 100. So it worked out really well. I did have a lot. I had quite a bit of Mike Evans. I had a lot of Keenan Allen as well. Keenan Allen is just a weekly, just smash him into your lineup with as many injuries as they have. That dude is getting a ridiculous target share. Last week was solid for me, and had a lot of Chiefs, of course. McCole Hardman, thank you once again. So yeah, no, it's been a lot of fun so far. But the one thing I will say so far, it's been like you basically are forced to play Chiefs, right, every single week, because they are just at that spot every week, and you look at a lot of other teams where you have a lot of ups and downs, and the only thing I didn't have a lot of was I did not have any Daniel Jones. I did have some Sterling Shepard and Evan Ingram, but I did not have any Daniel Jones, and he went off in the second half against the Bucs.
That was very frustrating. Even for Kyle Allen with me, I played him, or was forced to play him in redraft with having Cam in a 2-quarterback league, picked him up. Didn't feel real good about it, but I have McCaffrey, I have DJ Moore. And so I said, what the hell? Let me just go ahead and start this guy over Mason Rudolph. And definitely, we know how that turned out. So I was very excited about that. But I wanted to play him in DFS just because he was so cheap. And I love Christian McCaffrey. And just by pairing him with, a Greg Olsen, who was in a nut spot, as people were talking about, or a Curtis Samuel, who was cheap. I'm curious to talk about that, Kev, as we get into quarterbacks with you, about how we can take advantage of some of these low-end guys. Daniel Jones, you mentioned him. He's still cheap right now. No Saquon Barkley. It seems like he's going to be forced to be the guy once again, and we know where – or we think we have a good feeling about where the passes will go. So in trying to get exposure to these guys in GPPs and in cash, it does lead to some upside, and even with Daniel Jones last week, like going against Tampa. In retrospect, it just seems like, hey, get yourself 10% exposure to this guy, because at that price tag, it still allows you to get up to some of these other high price guys that we want to play, a la the Chiefs. When you're not getting exposure to Pat Mahomes, but still getting exposure to these pass catchers. So, Kev, I want to talk about. Let's just go ahead and talk about quarterbacks this week, and kind of just from a game script perspective, as we have the Chiefs going against Detroit here on the road. Pat Mahomes' first dome game inside. Chiefs are implied to score over 30 points once again. You got Matthew Stafford on the other end to run it back. I think this is where a lot of people are looking at trying to start their builds for this week, because you got the high point total of over, almost 55 points here that we're expecting. So, like, what is a way that you're looking at getting exposure to this game? Is it just paying up the 7,500 price tag on Pat Mahomes? Are you looking at Matt Stafford maybe to run it back, or to not run it back, but to get the exposure on that end from Detroit, and then get some pass catchers from KC?
It's hard to avoid. You want to get cute and not play as much Chiefs to get an edge, but this offense is just so damn good, and I don't know how you get away from it right now. Whether it's Mahomes, and you can make an argument. Even though he's $600 more expensive than Lamar Jackson on DraftKings, you can make an argument that he should be more expensive. He's doing exactly what he did last year, especially earlier in the year, and just balling out right now. So far, he hasn't scored under 30 DK points. He had 30 week 1, 35 week 2, and 30.86 week 3, and this is another great matchup. It's inside the dome. And, I don't know how you don't, stack this game and have a lot of, have a lot of exposure to this game, because, there's not been a defense that's been able to stop it. And if Baltimore can't stop the Chiefs, Detroit damn sure is not going to stop them. So, I don't know how you get away from it. Even at 7,500, it does, make things a little tight by trying to fit him in, especially with some of the pass catchers, because his pass catchers are starting to get a little bit more expensive. And so, yeah, so you definitely start with Mahomes. Now, if you want to get, go away from him and, try to get a little bit cheaper, I do think there's certainly some options. I think Russell Wilson at 6,100, he has, their defense has not been very good at all this year, and have just allowed a lot of teams to kind of pass all over them. And, this is a game in Arizona inside a dome here, and that it'll be interesting to see how the Arizona plays. Because if Arizona can keep it close, or even get a lead on Seattle, then we're going to see Russell Wilson have to open it up again and not really be able to run the ball, because they've not really been able to run the ball very effectively, which is really what they want to do. But so yeah, I definitely think you can go to Russell Wilson at 6,100. Going down. I think that is this the week that Jared Goff finally actually does something, because he's been awful so far for them this year. Their offense as a whole really hasn't been that good. Cooper Kupp has been like the lone bright spot on their offense, because Brandon Cooks has had a few decent games, but I think he's like wide receiver 30 right now. And then you have Robert Woods, who's done absolutely nothing. He's like wide receiver 52 right now. So, Jared Goff at 6,300 going against Tampa Bay at home, like this seems like a prime spot for them to kind of get right. And, if they're going to do that, this seems to be the spot to do it. So, and I don't think Jared Goff's going to carry much ownership at all. So I think this is a spot to, maybe get a little contrarian, because we know this Rams offense is capable of putting up 30, 40 points at any time. So this might be the spot to do it, because right now you cannot run against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay's run defense has been just excellent so far this season. They have not allowed anybody. They have shut down Christian McCaffrey. Last week Saquon Barkley didn't do anything until he got hurt, and this run defense for Tampa Bay has been really good, a lot better than anybody expected. So to beat this team, you have to use open it up and through the air, and obviously this team can do that. And I think this is a game where you probably could get a little maybe go over the overweight here on this Rams offense. If you wanted to go down into the cheap ones, obviously you could play Matt Stafford, who on the other side of this game where they're going to have to keep up with Kansas City. Whether you want to, play Stafford with Galladay, or, maybe TJ Hawkinson or something like that. I think that is definitely an option. But I think that's kind of where I'm looking. And obviously Daniel Jones at 5,300, but I think he's going to be pretty. I have a feeling he's going to be pretty popular, especially after that big second half he had. And Washington's defense right now is a mess, and their secondary has not looked very good. They have not been able to stop anybody. So I think that's another one that but I think that one is going to be pretty. Well, one that a lot of people are going to be going to.
And the Daniel Jones is what you're referring to, Kev? Play.
Yeah, what did I say? Is that what I said, Daniel Jones?
Yeah, Daniel Jones. I just wanted to make sure I was hearing you correctly. Yeah, I agree with that, Kev. He's so cheap, and especially the Saquon Barkley being out. Russell Shepard has popped up, even though he's not somebody we're looking to target from DFS. I think it's just important to kind of dictate and look forward to predicting where the targets are going to be going, because Evan Ingram's in for a massive share here in targets, and then Sterling Shepard as well should be, in for a big game as well too. I love what you're saying about Jared Goff, Kev. I mean, he's a guy that on Monday, even, and we're recording this on Thursday now, a guy I was looking at, his best game of the season came at home week 2 against New Orleans. Wasn't kind of what we were looking for. Wrote him up in the Contrarian article that week, put up 20 DK points. It was fine, but only 1 touchdown, not getting to the 300-yard bonus. But, going against a Tampa Bay, which is just right now a funnel of past gloriness, for lack of a better word. I mean, they have been great against the run. Saquon was injured, but kind of limiting him early, limiting Christian McCaffrey. It's been really incredible to see. But the secondary is just giving up points in bunches. So I love Cooper Kupp in cash. I love Brandon Cooks, not in cash, but in tournaments, because this guy is really kind of popping off on the map and kind of having a quiet year because the touchdowns haven't been there, but he is getting the targets. And so I love being able to, kind of get all of the points here with Jared Goff, especially right now with the way that Todd Gurley's being used, Kev. Like, he's just been used in limited work, and it doesn't seem like they're, really trusting him, and his price isn't too reflective of that on DraftKings. We can talk about that at running back, but I agree with you. Love Jared Goff. We need to talk about Phillip Rivers and what he's been able to do. I mean, this could be the last week that we get the Chargers in a situation where we know all of the target share is going. Mike Williams is banged up. Hunter Henry's been out. And so we've seen kind of Austin Eckler and Keenan Allen just spike in target share and usage over these past 2 weeks. And the Chargers have been playing from behind, and now we get an interesting spot where they're going on the road to Miami, West Coast traveling to the East Coast. I don't like that all too much. And I'm almost tempted to say that this is a trap game. It feels weird to say, and I've talked about this with the Chargers before. We talked about that Chargers traveling to Cleveland when Cleveland was not great, and saying it's a trap game, but the Chargers just don't look like themselves right now. Phillip Rivers doesn't look like himself, and the Dolphins are basically just playing for pride right now. I don't like Rosen. I don't think it's good, but I'm just trying to figure out where the points come from. And in Phillip Rivers, like, normally this should be a good matchup. I wanted to play a ton of Dak last week because of the Miami team that he's going up against, but I just don't know. I would rather play the Russell Wilson, as you're talking about, the Jared Goff, Deshaun Watson going against Carolina, where we know he's having to throw a ton. The volume has definitely been there with them only rolling out Carlos Hyde. Just look at the attempts that he's had, 34, 29, 30, and putting up 2 3-touchdown games, and just having the 30 or 351 yards against the Chargers. I mean, that's definitely promising. So that's where I'm looking to in GPPs. I just don't think I can do it with Rivers. Somebody in the $5,000 range, Kev, that I'm interested in trying to get exposure to outside of Daniel Jones is maybe Jacoby Brissett. Jacoby Brissett, he, has come into a situation where he's kind of taken the offense on himself. And each week he's kind of increased in what he's been able to do, passing for 300 yards against Atlanta. And this Oakland defense is really banged up right now, missing Abrams. The secondary just doesn't look great. And so, Jacoby, if we can get him with some of his guys, I want T.Y. to be playing in this game for me to like it. But T.Y., Marlon Mack, one of the tight ends maybe is what we could play to get some leverage. That's kind of what I'm thinking with this week for me. Kev, Lamar Jackson, yeah, I know you said you'd rather just pay up the $600 there, but because we know who his targets are and where the points are coming from and the way that these guys, Marquise Brown putting up huge air yard numbers, Mark Andrews getting so much of a target share, like, does it make sense to you to even have exposure to this line going against the Cleveland defense that just kind of really got exposed by Jared Goff on some big plays?
Well, I mean, to be honest, they should have done so much more, really, to be honest with you, because the Cleveland secondary is really banged up right now. So
Yeah.
it really shouldn't have even been that close. So, no, and when I said that earlier, like I have no problem if you want to play Lamar Jackson. We know he gives you that rushing floor that we look for, and he's always a threat to really score anytime he has the ball in his hands. So I mean, I definitely think you can go there, especially on the at home. But the worry with him is does he lose some touchdowns to Mark Ingram on the goal line or something like that? But yeah, I mean, I think if you want to play Lamar Jackson, I think that's fine. I just feel like that. Like if I'm paying up at 6,900 for a quarterback, I just feel like I'd rather pay that extra 600 and get that floor that Pat Mahomes' floor has become 30 points. Really, I mean, even back to last year, that's just really what it is, and it's insane to think about. And that's why I say whenever at 70, I feel like at 7,500, that's still, I don't think that's insanely high for somebody who's giving you that kind of weekly that kind of weekly output. And I don't even know. I mean, I feel like that. I mean, there's definitely some range of outcomes to get into the 40s with him. So I don't know if this is that game. I don't think that it is, but because I think this could be a bloodbath that Kansas City just destroys Detroit here. But yeah, I mean, I just think that if I wouldn't be mad if someone wanted to play Lamar Jackson, but I feel like that I would much rather play like a Deshaun Watson or a Jared Goff or somebody like that.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Kev. It's a divisional game. I try and stay away from those when I can, unless something is sticking out to me based off of history. And I just don't see him paying off enough right now, at least, to warrant not paying the extra for Pat Mahomes. It's just ridiculous. 370 plus yards that he's had in each one of the 3 games this week, and he just does it with ease. I mean, this guy is just flicking the wrist and being able to just take advantage of these teams that he's going against. It doesn't matter, and the fact that he's playing in a dome for the first time, it makes it even more exciting to watch. So definitely excited to play some Pat Mahomes this week, especially in GPPs where paying up for quarterback hasn't really been what we're used to and thinking about when we're building teams. But the way that the Chiefs are playing right now and getting the points without Damian Williams being out there is really enticing. Is there anything else at quarterback, Kev, that's sticking out to you? Is there any way where you're looking to get Jameis exposure? I know this was a guy that you were kind of high on coming into the season. He's throwing the ball, right? Like Peyton Barber and Ronald Jones, even, who came in last week and kind of just took over the backfield there last week. Still not looking strong enough. This is a Rams team that is very strong in their front 7. So I'm not sure. I think he'll be playing from behind. And so if we can get him with like a Mike Evans, OJ Howard, are you feeling comfortable with those stacks this week?
I would want to wait and see what happens with Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin has not practiced yet this week, and because I feel like that if you took him out of the offense now, they could incorporate OJ Howard a little bit more, but it would worry me a little bit with Jameis Winston. But I do think this is a spot where that I think they could be put in a situation where they're gonna have to throw a ball a ton to keep up with the Rams. And at his price tag, he's only 5,700. Like that's still a pretty solid price to pay for him. And it's been kind of Jekyll and Hyde this year. The first couple of games were not very good at all. 10, 13 the first 2 games, but then last week he put up 29.5 and really should have won that game had their field goal kicker not missed the last field goal. But
right,
there. I mean, so far through the first 3 games, they have he's thrown 36, 25, and 37 times, and last week he had the big 380 and 3 touchdowns. Him and Mike Evans finally got things going, and so he's definitely somewhere that I would want to go. And I don't think he's going to carry much ownership because I think a lot of people are still, don't feel fantastic about him. But yeah, I mean, I definitely think you can go there. Like I said, I feel like that this game is going to be, this could be the second highest scoring game on the slate. And I don't know if anybody would surprise anybody if it was the highest scoring game on the slate. So yeah, I definitely think if you want to go with Jameis, I think you can. But it's also risky, and I would also probably want some Rams defense as well because we know he can throw interceptions in bunches.
Yes, very excited about the Rams defense, Kev. Well, I can't wait to talk about that later. Kev, one more quarterback that I wanted to touch on before we move on, unless you had anything. Where is he? Yeah, here we go. So Case Keenum, he had a rough week against the Bears, Monday Night Football. It is a short week, but this is a Giants team that we've been attacking with quarterbacks all year. I mean, quarterbacks against the Giants are throwing for over 1,000 yards, by far the most that's been allowed by defense all year. 8 touchdowns against them. That ranks for third as far as allowing touchdowns, and they're giving up 88 DK points so far this year. Now, Case Keenum popped up on the injury report too, but this is a game that I've kind of seen touts and people in the industry kind of talking about as game stacking. And so is there any way that you're looking to this game just knowing that Keenum's on a short week, very scary there. And speaking of scary Terry McLaurin, he popped up on the injury report as well too. I'm just looking to see if there's any way that you would look to get exposure to this side of the ball, which is a Washington team that we really haven't been excited about targeting at all this year.
I mean, I don't hate to play. Like if you wanted to do a couple one-off lineups or something like that with him, like it wouldn't surprise me. But I just don't think he has a super high ceiling either. I would rather probably get exposure to the pass catchers, whether, if you want to take a shot on a Paul Richardson or, a McLaurin or something like that. Like, I definitely think you could go that route, or maybe even a Vernon Davis at tight end, something like that. But I don't think I would be running out to try to jam in a bunch of Case Keenums into my lineup.
No, I wouldn't either. I just wanted to touch base on that. I'd much rather play Daniel Jones and just get a pass catcher or two from Washington to run it back with. I just don't know if the upside is there. And like I said, Washington playing on a short week there, it definitely has me worried. Kev, is there anything else at the quarterback position you want to touch on before we move on to running back?
No, I think that's it. I think we pretty much well, yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I was going to say, what about what do you think about the New England and Buffalo game? But I think that has really the potential to be a pretty low scoring game.
Yeah, I agree with you, Kev. It's pretty much an avoid for me, outside of maybe a couple GPP lines with Edelman or maybe Michelle. It's just so tough with the Patriots right now, like to see where the points are coming from. And of course, Rex Burkhead popped up on the injury report. I know you guys wrote that massive waiver article and talking about Rex Burkhead, which I loved. A great pickup. And then he just pops up on the injury report. It's just so typical to be happening. But yeah, I don't feel confident in that game. Buffalo's defense has actually been playing pretty well. Tre'Davious White shadowing Josh Gordon really worries me there too. So I'm not looking there, but it's the Patriots, so we should always expect points to be scored. Let's talk about running backs, Kev, because this is exciting for me. Last week I wanted to pay up for running back and had a lot of exposure to Zeke Elliott, and of course Tony Pollard ends up outscoring him pretty much, getting late work in what was a massive blowout there. Christian McCaffrey being the highest price at 8,800. I mean, the market share this guy has in the offense is like near 50%, Kev. It's ridiculous. And like Houston's D is not one that I usually look to target with running backs, but they are giving up passes to running backs out of the backfield and getting exposed that way. And that's pretty much Christian McCaffrey's bread and butter. It was nice to kind of see him still get 4 targets in an offense with Kyle Allen and 24 attempts on the ground going against Arizona. He's just been magical, I guess, to not be corny with it, but like this dude's just a beast and he's not priced up. Like he should definitely be in the $9,000 range on DraftKings 1 point PPR. And it's just not enough. I have to get Christian McCaffrey into lines, especially in cash. I don't think you overthink it. We have Dalvin Cook here, who's the next highest price at 8,300, who's just been a smash play week in and week out. First time he's been in 8K this year. I mean, starting off at 6K was so egregious, as I love to say. And then getting up to 7,800 last week, just a smash play again. But going on the road against Chicago, I mean, I don't know. He could see some red zone work and it could end up paying off, I guess, if he's getting the touchdowns. But the yardage, I just don't think he's going to be able to hit that 100-yard bonus that we've been used to. So that kind of worries me. 8K, I know you said last week that you weren't paying the price tag for Austin Eckler at 7,200. Well, he's 8K now, Kevin. He's got a pretty prime matchup here. The Dolphins, all they've been able to do on defense is pretty much limit receivers. And even then, they're still giving up points, but they are giving up the most points to running backs on the ground. He's at 8K. And I like Justin Jackson too. Justin Jackson popped up on the injury report, but he's only 4K. If he ends up playing in this game, I love him. The backups have killed them. Rex Burkhead. Who else did they got? Tony Pollard. It's just been premier. Just knock it out of the park with the backups too. If he's getting, not maybe a full half, but he could get all of the fourth quarter in this game, 4,100. So if he's playing, I like exposure to him. Kev, I got to ask you about, what we're doing with guys like Mark Ingram, who just went off last week, Leonard Fournette, he's only 6,000, but he's getting catches, Kev, he's getting targets. So is the middle range where we can look to for value once again, as it kind of didn't really hit the way we were expecting to last week. Except, it's like the high end guys are the really cheap guys. So what are you thinking about and what are you leaning to in the running back position this week?
Yeah, I think this week is a little interesting because you have like Christian McCaffrey, like you mentioned, at 8,800 up top. I think a lot of ownership is going to be driven to him. And then you have like Saquon Barkley, who obviously is out. And then so that, they go, you basically have Dalvin Cook, Austin Eckler. But like Dalvin Cook, like this is a tough matchup. The Bears defense has been fantastic as well. They have yet to give up a rushing touchdown on the season. I think through 3 games, they've given up the 4th fewest DK points to the position. And like I said, I mean, they've given up 195 yards off the ground so far, no touchdowns, no receiving touchdowns either to running back. So like this is not a prime matchup for Dalvin Cook, but he's been so damn explosive, and really all he needs is one big play to make you feel a lot better about his ownership. So I don't know. I think this is going to be an interesting game because if they can't run the ball, are they going to try to open up the pass a little bit with this offense? And that's something we just haven't seen from them all year. But
right.
Really, Eckler. So here's my issue with Eckler this week. And now he is 8K. Now, don't get me wrong. This is a tremendous matchup against the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins are absolutely they're just the stone cold worst. I mean, they may have 0-16. I don't know if like, so a lot of his production, as a lot of it has been because of his usage in the passing game. Now, most of their games, like, unless you project this game to be close, like, I don't know how much passing game work he really gets because he's had at least 6 receptions in every game this year. I don't know if he gets that. I don't know if they need that. And on the ground, I mean, he had 12, 17, and 9, through the first 3 weeks. And I mean, he hasn't been great as a runner. It's mostly been what he's been able to do as a pass catcher. And I don't know if they need him for that. So at 8K, like, I don't know. Like, I think that's a little bit too much for me. I would rather just pay down for Justin Jackson, who I think that has a better opportunity to get more work. And then if they do get a lead and they do blow the doors off of him early, then, I mean, I don't know. Like, I feel like that he at 4,100, as long as he plays, he was limited at practice today with a calf issue, but I mean, I think he's somebody that could actually get more work here than Austin Eckler, and somebody that I think that I would just have a little bit more interest in if I wanted to pay down at a running back spot. So I'm not saying don't play Austin Eckler because it is a really good spot, but I think there should be some concern there that maybe he doesn't get the volume that people think he's going to get in this matchup, unless the Dolphins are able to keep this close, which we've seen nothing to suggest that they can really do that for any extended period of time. So for me, I think it really starts for me this week. Obviously Christian McCaffrey, but past that, like I think David Johnson is somebody that I really want to have a lot of exposure to. He always seems to play really well against Seattle. It's a home game. 6,800 is a great price for him. And we really haven't had a really big boom week from David Johnson. I think this could be the week that we see it happen. Week 1, he did have 25 DK points, but we haven't seen that 30-point game from him. He has been much more involved as a pass catcher, 7, 9, and 1 targets the last 3 weeks. So, or 7, 1, and 9, excuse me. But I definitely think that this is a game where I feel like that they're going to have to really get him going. And I really like David Johnson, at home at 6,800 in this matchup. Past that, if you keep, I think you're right. You really look at this middle range. I think, Leonard Fournette definitely has some intrigue to me. We'll be interested to see if this Denver defense can actually, get things going. It is at home, so Denver's defense usually plays better at home, but their defense does not look very good, which is crazy whenever they have Vic Fangio as their head coach. Like that's kind of been his MO. So,
right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, Nick Fangio could be out of a job, or Vic Fangio could be out of a job real quick if things don't turn around in Denver, because right now it's not looking good for that team at all. And then, you go down a little bit further. So this is where I think get interesting. I think Darrell Williams is, if Damian Williams is out this week, and it looks like he is because he has not practiced all week, that I don't think he can play, and I don't think they need him to. Darrell Williams looked damn good last week against the Ravens. He looked definitely like the better back. And we know that LaShawn McCoy, he did get in a full practice today, but has been dealing with an ankle injury. And they kind of been Darrell Williams has actually been outsnapped him last week. And I think Darrell Williams at 4,700 is going to be pretty hard to avoid in that backfield. And then I think, with this game, and he was also utilized as a pass catcher. So I really like Darrell Williams here at 4,700.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I like that. I like that, especially if you're not getting Pat Mahomes exposure either. If you can take advantage of this rushing defense here that's allowing 100 yards on the ground, that might not be a bad play. I mean, this is kind of where the bread and butter was made last week with guys like Phillip Lindsay. I remember him being down in this range, just went ham in a matchup and really, made you feel good about paying down on running back with a guy like Rex Burkhead, who we saw on Sunday, James White getting ruled out because of the birth of his baby, and you were able to play him at 3,900. So I like getting guys down in this range and not just always paying up for the high price running back in this situation. Kev, speaking of which, James White, he's back now. He's 4,900, probably not on a lot of people's radar, but started the season off with 2 double-digit games because of the work that he's able to see in the passing game. And we said that Buffalo is not a defense that we definitely want to, or that we necessarily want to target, but he comes in at 4,900. Sony Michel is, where did I just see him? I'm sorry. Sony Michel, he's 55. So you pay 600 more for him, but he's just not getting work, Kev, and he's not getting the touches on the ground. They're not trusting him. He's fumbling. He's really struggling. So at 4,900, James White in this game, the way that the receiving core is banged up with Julian Edelman there and not having Antonio Brown anymore, they have no tight ends to throw to. Like, can we go to James White this week at 4,900 and feel good about it?
No, because I mean, usually when you use James White, you're looking for, high scoring game where they're going to have to really, utilize. I don't know. Like, I could see it, but I mean, this isn't the spot where I feel like that I would want to use James White. I think Rex Burkhead plays this week. I don't think anything suggests that, he was limited, but it doesn't sound like it's anything that's going to keep him out of this game. So I don't know how you could play Sony Michel, with how everything's going on. But, I feel like always with the New England backfield, it's always expect the unexpected. And everybody's jumping off this bandwagon and like, nope, can't play him, get away from him, stay away from him is whatever. He's going to go off and rush for 100 yards and 3 touchdowns. And everyone's going to be like, yeah, well, because that's just how it works with this team.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the same way that we're seeing with Green Bay, or not Green Bay, with Philly, I guess, on this Thursday night game, it's like they have Darren Sproles there, who starts up the year really strong in the passing game, and then Jordan Howard's getting the goal line carries, and Miles Sanders seems to be the every down back. And then they've kind of really circled that in, and like now Jordan Howard's the every down back, and Sanders is being sprinkled in, and Sproles is non-existent. It's really hard when we're playing running back roulette with these guys to really get a hold on it. But I think James White, I do think he has some upside here. If we do have people on the injury reports popping up on Sunday, I want people to keep an eye on that, because he does have a role in this offense, and he is a guy that Tom Brady trusts and has trusted for a while. So, and Sony Michel, playing him on the road right now in this matchup, I don't think you just can do it. I really don't. So I'm going to have some exposure to James White if people pop up on the injury report, like Burkhead or Edelman, and see what we can do and run with it. Kev, Wayne Gallman, 4,600, no Saquon Barkley. He's the guy. People just blew all their fab on him to get him in there, but he really hasn't done anything with opportunities in the past. Can we trust him this week on DraftKings and play him at 4,600? His ownership is going to be insane.
As it should not be, because he's awful and he is not any good. No, I will have probably 0 Wayne Gallman. It'd be one thing if he was like 3,500, 4K. Okay, cool. I get it. But he's 4,600. Like, you know who I'd rather play at the same price range? Chris Thompson. Give me Chris Thompson, who is 3rd in the league and targets on the year. Like, give me that guy. Where I know much more to expect. Wayne Gallman's not like some prolific pass catching running back or anything like that, or explosive. So no, I don't really want any part of that. I'm not going to. And if he's going to be chalk, like, then yes, please let's have Wayne Gallman be chalk. I want all of that. So. No, I would much rather play Darrell Williams. That's $100 more. I'd rather pay $100 less for Chris Thompson. I would rather pay for Tariq Cohen. There's just way better options here than to even think about playing Wayne fucking Gallman. Like, no, thank you.
Yeah, I can't. I don't want to do it either. He's 4,600. He's going to be. I have to figure out what I'm doing in cash game lineups, because that's usually what I've been doing, is just taking a guy who's I know is going to be high owned and is cheap because of the exposure. But it's just one of those situations we just can't trust it. They're working out so many running backs right now. They do have Elijah Penny there. Like, I just don't know if we're going to get the share that people are projecting. And I would just try and go somewhere else to get my exposure, like a Darrell Williams that you're saying in a KC offense. I know points are going to be coming in bunches, so I'm going to feel a lot more confident about that. Hell, I'll even play Devontae Freeman at home at 5,000 in some lines before I could get to Wayne Gallman. It just doesn't feel good, and when it doesn't feel right, I just don't want to pull a trigger at that ownership level. Kev, Marlon Mack is a guy who I think, he might find his way in my article, the Contrarian 10 article this week. He's getting the attempts, had the fewest attempts that he saw last week, but going against this Oakland team who's just been able to really be abused in any way, shape, or form. And, had that big game in week 1, had a pretty decent game last week, getting to 16.8 there with the touchdown. I just really, like I said, I'm getting exposure to Jacoby. I like getting exposure to Marlon Mack. His ownership is not coming in nearly at where it should be. I feel like right now he's 6,100. I think I'll find myself playing him in some lines. And then Chris Carson, Kev, like, what has happened with this guy? Really paid off in week 1 when he was chalk. Because of the touchdown shares that he saw, only 15 attempts for 46 yards, not great. And he's pretty much stayed around that 3.1, 3.5 average of rushing. But the fumbles are very worrisome. I think he, it says here 3, but I think he has 4 on the year, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe not all lost, but they just really can't trust him right now. But, Pete Carroll, he's the leader of coach speak, and he's been out there saying Chris Carson's the guy. Can we trust him at all?
I wouldn't. I mean, I don't know. Like, he just does not look like the same guy this year, and his fumbles issues. And then, Rashad Penny now returned to practice today as a limited participant, and sounds like he could be on track to play. And I don't know. I think I'd almost rather try to pay down at, if you want to, if you want, one of these running backs, I think I'd almost rather have Rashad Penny, at this point at 4,200. And, I mean, he played week 2. He had 10 attempts for 62 yards and a touchdown. Just looked like a much better running back here. And, obviously he's the guy that, has the draft capital and everything else. So, if he keeps fumbling, like, he's going to fumble himself out of a job. And Rashad Penny at 4,200 just seems like a little bit more enticing, if that's where you're wanting to go.
Yeah, I think that's where you would almost have to go. It just does. It's just not great. It's just not great right now. Really frustrating situation. Kev, is there anything else about running back that we're missing that I'm missing on? No big injuries or anything like that to talk about before we move to wide receiver?
The only other one that I think that does have that is a little intriguing would be Josh Jacobs at 5,100. Nobody's going to play him through the first 3 weeks of the season. The Colts have allowed where was that at? I don't know. But anyways, I feel like that he's somebody that I think that I think is pretty interesting. And I know they spoke this week that they want to get him more involved as a pass catcher as well. We know there's not really anything else that's there. And I think this is a pretty decent matchup for them. And, inside the dome for Josh Jacobs. And I think that at 5,100, no one's going to be playing him. And I think he's kind of an interesting. I think he's an interesting play in this game.
Okay. Yeah, I can get behind that, I guess, at 5,100 here. The attempts haven't been there, but Oakland really hasn't been the game script to have him perform to his capability. So, very kind of worrisome about the catches or the targets, I guess, that he's not seeing. But, these are the type of plays that we like to take advantage of if people are on them. And that will be one. Kev, let's move on to wide receiver. I mean, this was the nut spot last week. Julio Jones putting up a big game, Mike Evans putting up a big game, Keenan Allen putting up a big game, and they're just not even priced in 8K ranges off of the performances that they had. So you got Julio at the top, DeAndre Hopkins, who's kind of been quiet the past couple of weeks. We saw him on that primetime game there, week 1. 8 catches on 13 targets, 111, 2 touchdowns. Hasn't had a touchdown in back-to-back games now. I think this is a get-right spot for him going against the Carolina secondary that we've kind of looked to attack in different ways. And he's still getting the targets. So definitely don't sleep on DeAndre. Get some exposure to him in some lines if you can. Keenan Allen is just in a smash spot right now against Miami. I did say earlier that they are the best at limiting wide receivers. And, if I felt any type of confidence in Xavier Howard, I would be maybe worried about it. But Xavier Howard just got burned by Amari Cooper for 2 last week. And Keenan Allen's he's just unstoppable right now. I mean, his numbers speak for itself. You watch him on film. Rivers is looking for him every chance that he can get. And especially if you don't have exposure to Eckler, I don't know how you don't try and get Keenan Allen on your lines. I think he's a cash game lock at this point. Another cash game lock, I feel like, Kev, is Cooper Kupp right now. 6,500, just not expensive enough for the target share that he's seeing. Still gets that same price from what we just witnessed. He was on the Sunday night slate against Cleveland, so he got locked in. Just saw 12 targets, 11 catches, 101 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, 11 DK points in that first game, 20 DK points in the second game. He's just been the blanket there, while especially, Tyler Higbee being out, I don't think it's being talked about enough, and he's like the security blanket for Jared Goff, and really like that. I talked about Brandon Cooks earlier. Kev, one of the guys that I'm looking at, and he's cheap, so I'm going to skip around here. But talk about DK Metcalf. This guy, he's seeing, huge number in air yards right now. I think he's like 4th, if I'm not mistaken, or something. He's in the top 10 in air yards right now that he's seeing, and he's got a 17-point ADOT. So the average depth of target is there. This Arizona secondary, shout out to you. You've been talking about targeting them at the start of the season while Patrick Peterson was suspended. And this is how you can get on Arizona, by just attacking them with pass catchers. They have not been able to stop anybody. And Tyler Lockett, I think he's in a smash spot too, but let's not sleep on DK Metcalf. I think he can, if he gets a big play early, he could be, well hitting 4 or 5x at this price tag at 4,800. And he's a guy that I'm really looking at getting exposure to this week. You talked about the KC pass catchers. They're just amazing right now. McCole Hardman, I just, what is his price right now? Like 5,100, only getting $100 increase off of that big play that he had. I guess the receptions haven't been there, but he's still getting targets, 11 targets in the past 2 games. Just any way that you can get exposure to this team right now through the air is how you got to go. I like Sammy Watkins too. The targets have been there. He just hasn't been hitting, but 6,700, it's not anywhere near me wanting to not get exposure to him. So I'm liking Sammy Watkins this week. Talk to me about, some guys that you're looking at, Kev, this week and getting some exposure to maybe these high scoring games.
Yeah, so I mean, like I said earlier, we'll have to monitor the health of Chris Godwin. If he's out, obviously, then Mike Evans just becomes really hard to get away from at 7,100. We saw them last week to really, get on the same page. But you already mentioned Tyler Lockett. I definitely love him this week in this matchup. Inside the dome here against Arizona at 6,300. I think that's still way too cheap for him. Kenny Golladay at 5,900 against Kansas City. Somebody's got to catch the ball. I think having some equal exposure to Kenny Golladay and even Marvin Jones, who finally had a pretty big game last week. I think both of those are very interesting plays. And the Chiefs have really struggled to stop. Really, it's been the big plays that have really got them, especially you go back to week 1 where DJ Shark had I think he caught 2 deep bombs on him, and then Chris Conley, we've seen wide receivers be able to get them. It's interesting though to look at, because if you go and you look, I mean the Chiefs defense looks like their passing offense looks better than what it's been, because they've allowed 1, 2, 3, 4, looks like about the ninth fewest DK points to wide receivers on the season. But I think some of that's skewed because of last week going against the Ravens, where the Ravens really targeted their tight ends a ton, and then then you also had Mark Ingram had that big game, so I think it kind of skews their numbers a little bit, because I mean, like I said, that week 1 matchup, they definitely can get beat, some of their corners, and so I definitely think this is a game where you should be looking. I don't necessarily like to always run it back, but I definitely would probably want somebody here in this game to get a little bit more contrarian with it, like I said, like Kenny Golladay or Marvin Jones, who I think will be both, not as highly owned as they probably should be in this matchup. One of my favorite plays of the week is Sterling Shepard at 5,800 going against the Washington Redskins here. We know that they don't have a ton of options. They basically Shepard, Evan Ingram. Now you don't have Saquon, so you're not worried about him taking pass catch. Some of the pass catching work away. So I definitely think that is a very interesting way to get pretty contrarian, is going with a Sterling Shepard, who I don't think is going to have nearly as much ownership as he should. And both of these secondaries for these two teams have been awful. The Giants have allowed the most DK points, and the Redskins have allowed the second most to the position. So there's a lot to like here in this game. And I think Sterling Shepard at 5,800, I think that's a little bit too cheap for this matchup. So I definitely want to have some exposure there. And then, what?
No, I'm agreeing with you. I'm looking at it, and it makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. No, sorry. And
I can agree with you every now and then. I don't feel it doesn't.
I'm not used to that. Usually, that doesn't happen. So okay then.
This is the last week before Golden Tate comes back.
Yeah, well, the old man that we shouldn't even be caring about. But I think in that. I mean, I don't know. This feels like a week that because even the 4K range, I think there's a lot of plays here that I definitely like. Terry McLaurin right now. I mean, that dude is just bald this year. all 3 games. He's definitely Case Keenum's favorite target, and he's 4,500. And I get that they're coming off the Monday night game, and so his price is going to be a little bit, but I mean, it still doesn't make any sense considering that, the first 2 weeks he still put up 26.5 and 17.2. You think he'd be a little more expensive than 45, maybe in the 5K range or something like that. But we'll have to watch. I guess he was limited this week with a hamstring, but it sounds like he's probably going to play. But with him, I mean, I don't know how you get away from that. At 4,500, this is a great matchup. And you talked about wanting to play Case Keenum. Even if he doesn't play, then Paul Richardson at 3,700 is even more intriguing as well. So, I definitely think there's some cheaper plays here that you can go with. I think Hunter Renfrow is somebody that you could go with as like a maybe just a floor play, because he's not like somebody that's super explosive, but somebody that could end up seeing 10 targets. In this game, depending on how game script goes, I think you could definitely go there. Darius Slayton is a deep threat for the Giants, who had a decent game last week. I think he had let me see real quick. I know he had a couple deep 3 catches for 82 yards. So he's definitely their deep threat. He's a rookie this year. He has 4.3 speed. Like this dude has some serious wheels, and I definitely think he could end up being this team's number 2 wide receiver here this week. And so in this matchup against that secondary, I definitely think if you wanted to pay down, he's only 3,200. I definitely think that's a way you can go. That's kind of what we're looking for. If you're going to come down here, you're looking for somebody that can get that home run, that that big splash play. And I definitely think Darius Slayton could be that guy, especially now with Daniel Jones, who I just think this offense is in much better hands with him, in that back or at quarterback. So I definitely think if you were looking to really pay down, Darius Slayton would be where I'd go.
Yeah. Another guy that I'm looking at in that range, Kev, is JJ Nelson for the Raiders. Ryan Grant just got released earlier this week. He's coming off of a 5-target game, 4 for 36. But he's got some deep balls that have come his way. And this Indianapolis team, Darius Leonard, he's banged up. Malik Hooker and Pierre Desir are on the injury report. So, if JJ Nelson is able to get loose here, I think they could target him deep, and I kind of like him in GPPs as a cheap one-off option. But I love the Paul Richardson call. I'm monitoring Terry, and even if Terry goes, I think that even helps Paul Richardson's ownership even more to get exposure there. Kev, a guy like Devontae Parker or even Preston Williams, these guys are cheap. Miami's going to be forced to throw. They've had their fair share of targets in this offense. Devontae Parker 6 last week. Preston Williams was right around there as well too. Devontae Parker has been up there in air yards as well too. So I don't know if necessarily game stacking from a standpoint makes sense. But we could see the Dolphins finally get some points. I'm interested in some teams in GPPs 20 maxes where I'm looking for 4,000 or 3K piece to kind of get in there. Who do I want to talk? Oh, Stephon Diggs, Kev. So he's 5,500. He hasn't done jack. He hasn't done jack shit. He's been abysmal, a ghost. He's going against the Chicago secondary that has been exposed in the past. So going against Buster Screen, if he's able to get some slot work here, he's had some big games against Chicago in his career. I just don't know. I mean, I've talked about him pretty much on every podcast. It feels like this year. I have him in redraft. He's 5,500. Nobody's going to play him. Even the way that Thielen's being used right now, Kev, with the target share that he's getting, but still, I mean, he got a rushing touchdown last week. What is that? Really only saw that other goal line catch. He's not really even being utilized. And if Dalvin Cook is limited, if the Bears get up and Kirk Cousins is forced to throw, Diggs can be there. It doesn't feel good, and people are not. They're going to be looking at this. They're going to be laughing because I've seen Stephon Diggs be dropped in redraft leagues. Like, people are done with this guy, benching him. But something's got to give at some point. So I'm going back to the well. I'm probably going to have 15% or so exposure to Stephon Diggs, and I'm hoping we can get a big play out of him. He gets in the end zone finally, or not finally, but he gets in the end zone once again. Maybe he can get 100 yards if the big play pays off enough. And at 5,500, I'm just gonna play him because it's bound to happen. I mean, Ben Cummins, he's a friend of the pod. He always talks about the positive regression, quote unquote. Well, Stephon Diggs, here's your positive regression now. Go out there and do something for us.
It's not even really his fault. It's not like he's played poorly. It's just the targets haven't been there. The volume hasn't been there because they don't want to run the ball. And Mike Zimmer loves to just like go back to the 90s, where the 90s were, and let's just run the rock the entire time. And
Right.
Right now it's worked so far, so it's kind of hard to argue it because they're winning. And this isn't going to last all year. This isn't something they're going to be able to do all year. So, in redraft, people definitely should not be dropping Stephon Diggs like that. That's ludicrous. But yeah, I mean, I definitely, I think if, that is a perfect GPP type play, because he is explosive. He is somebody that can, that can catch a deep ball and, for a score. And at 5,500 now, like, he's not, priced up to the point where he was before. So you're getting a pretty good discount on him. Now, there's still the risk that this is a very low scoring game and it's a 17-10 type of game, and there's not a lot of pass volume here, then he doesn't get targeted that much. But I definitely think having some exposure to Stephon Diggs at this price, I don't know how you can. I don't think you can really talk somebody out of it, because I just think that we know the ceiling's there for him. I mean, he has the ceiling of 30 points in him. And like I said, eventually they're going to have to open up this playbook sometime, and this could be the week.
I think so. I definitely want to go with it. Once again, I'm just scrolling through here and thinking if there's anybody that we kind of missed. OBJ, Kev, he's 7,300. Baltimore's not a great matchup by any means, but if they get down in this game, Baker's not scared to throw the ball. OBJ is his most explosive player. I don't want to say he's matchup proof because this Baltimore secondary is so nice, with Marlon Humphrey back there. Brandon Carr's been okay. Would you be willing to play him in GPPs at all?
Of course. I mean, Odell Beckham is one of the top 2 or 3 wide receivers in terms of just talent in the league, and we know his ability to run after the catch and everything else. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot to like with Odell Beckham, but just I don't know what's going on with this offense. Like, this offense just kind of seems to be in disarray right now. But the Ravens secondary definitely didn't scare me all that much. The Chiefs were able to kind of have their way with them last week. Now, obviously, the Chiefs offense is the best in the league, but still, I definitely think we all thought the Browns offense was going to be a top 5 unit. Right now, we're not seeing it, but maybe this is a game where it's a little bit more high scoring than we thought it would be, and that Odell Beckham has a monster game here, and this certainly wouldn't surprise me. So having some exposure to Odell Beckham, I definitely think is something that you could look to do. What is your thoughts about Julio Jones this week? Going against Tennessee, who we know wants to be very slow paced and run first.
Yeah, I mean, exposure to Julio every week. High priced, but definitely paying off. Calvin Ridley, he's banged up right now. So basically they're rolling out Justin Hardy, Mohamed Sanu. Austin Hooper's look damn good too, but his target share is still there. I mean, you're talking about 30 targets on the year already, back-to-back 30-point DK games. So he's still, getting you 4X at the price tag. That's amazing. The fact that he's had 4 touchdowns to start the season is awesome. That's what we love to see, because it took him forever to get that first one last year. because they're just the worst. The Falcons are when it comes to his usage. So I love getting exposure to him any week. I'm not sure what else my exposure will be in that game. I kind of touched on Devontae Freeman. The Falcons have really been paying off, like in GPPs, because Matt Ryan has been finding a way to get in these holes early. And the second half, he's just been exploding for 300 yards and finding these late scores. And it's really been, because of what Pat Mahomes and Lamar Jackson and Russell Wilson have done, people aren't talking about what Matt Ryan, is doing from a fantasy standpoint, because it doesn't look sexy game-wise, because they always seem to be struggling, but he's putting up numbers. So, this could be a really sneaky game stack here, if you're able to get somebody on the Tennessee side that you feel confident with, or just go ahead and just take, the onslaught from Atlanta, where we know where the points are coming from. Just go ahead and get, Matt Ryan, Julio, and Devonta Freeman there if he can get some red zone scores. So, yes, long story short, exposure to Julio every week. It makes you sick when you fade him, and he pops off. So he's just one of the best to do it. You got to get exposure to him.
No, I agree, and that Matt Ryan Julio Jones stack was the one that I had the top 50 line in on the early only slate. Both of them were very low owned, did not have the exposure or the ownership that they should have. And I mean, Matt Ryan last week was only 5,700, and I thought that was ridiculous. So yeah, I definitely like some Julio Jones every week. Like there's never a week I don't think I ever not play Julio Jones. I don't care what the matchup is. The dude's that damn good, and he has 40, in his range of outcomes every time he steps onto the field. So, and if Calvin Ridley's out, then he could easily see 15 targets in this game. So yeah, I don't really. Other than that, I think, if you wanted to take a couple shots on like a Curtis Samuel going against Houston, Will Fuller, I think he's definitely has a couple, he hasn't really blown up yet. He hasn't had a big game. I think that could be coming, though. I do think the addition of Kenny Stills has kind of hurt him and taken away some of his big play potential. Yeah. And you kind of talked about Devontae Parker. The other one that would be the only other one that I think has has me a little intrigued would be Albert Wilson. It sounds like he's back this week. Said he's ready to go. He feels 100% now. He's only 4K, and he's also somebody that is very explosive, that can take the that can has run after the catch ability, and so I don't know, 4K, like they don't really have anybody else to throw the ball to. Basically, it's Devontae Parker and him, and so I definitely think you could go there, or Preston Williams, but. I think Albert Wilson, who will likely be in the slot, so really shouldn't see any Casey Hayward or anything like that. I definitely think that if you wanted to play him, they're going to be in, positive game script for them. So I definitely think if you want to play Albert Wilson, I think that's one where you could go to.
Yeah, that's an interesting play, Kev. I mean, the ball, they're going to be passing in this game one way or the other. Running game's been atrocious. Regardless. So like even in the off shot that they, somehow keep this game close, if Phillip Rivers is just being Phillip and turning the ball over, which he's capable of doing, I think some receiver definitely has some upside in this matchup. Kev, let's move on to tight end and kind of talk about this position. People are up in arms, so excited to play Will Dissly. I mean, his price tag is probably down here low. Can't even get to him. He's 3,600. But Arizona is just a sieve right now against tight ends. It's ridiculous. You just set it and forget it. I've Will Dissly playing him in redraft because of this matchup with it just you play this guy, right? Like he is going to get a touchdown. It feels like he could get two. Nick Vannett is gone now. He's in Pittsburgh, so like Dissly should be getting all of the work. And then even before that, against Pittsburgh, he saw 2 touchdowns against them, 5 catches on 5 targets. So I know so many people are excited to play him. I'll have him in cash. because that makes me feel good about it. But in GPPs, I just don't know, Kev. I don't know if the upside is necessarily there. And look at all these other options that we have. I mean, Travis Kelce could go off, and the price tag is high, but like I always feel like I can't fade this guy because he's Travis Kelce, and he could always go bananas, get you 30 points at the position, and Disley could get you 18. And at that price, you feel great. But in GPPs, you're looking for, 25 points out of each position pretty much. So it's a chance that he might not get there. A guy like Evan Ingram, who has a huge target share for this team right now, and the way the receivers kind of shape up, 5,700 doesn't seem like it's enough for him. Darren Waller at 5,200, he feels cheap. Mark Andrews, who had a rough game, if he's out there playing, it is tough because like Hayden Hurst and Nick Boyle are out there getting work. So it doesn't make you feel good about playing him in case one of those guys gets a touchdown and they are getting red zone looks. But the way that he's kind of just, played for us already this season and put the numbers up, I like him at 5K. And then Eric Ebron at 4K, Kev. I have some exposure to him. As I said, talk about Jacoby Brissett. But, 4 targets in back-to-back games. He has gotten a touchdown. He does just seem to like kind of be always there when they need him, like on third down, they're looking to target him. He's getting red zone looks. And Jack Doyle's name really hasn't been mentioned. So Eric Ebron's a guy that I'm looking to get some exposure to in this matchup. Talk to me about tight ends and what you're seeing, Kev, for this week.
Yeah, so a tight end, I think that it's really, really hard to get away from Darren Waller, who is the third highest priced tight end on the slate, but he's 5,200. But he's getting like 40% of the team targets right now. 40%. That is insane usage for any tight end. 40%. Like that is just for any player. that's a ton. Right. I don't know how you can really get away from that. Even at 5,200, I definitely think that you could definitely, you should have some exposure to Darren Waller every week because they just don't have anybody to go to. They have Tyrell Williams, and then that's it. They have Hunter Renfrow, who is just a slot guy. But that is definitely. I mean, we've seen it now 2 years in a row from this team. That we saw Jared Cook last year, and really have one of his best years as in the league, and we're seeing a career year from Darren Waller. So yeah, I mean, I can see Darren Waller continuing to get higher and higher, in terms of price, and it's really not going to surprise me. But I definitely want some exposure to him. And then I think Delaney Walker's in a fantastic spot against Atlanta. The Falcons have not been great against against tight ends. And just looking at his matchup, he has one of the best matchups, on the slate. And I definitely think you could go there. And then I'm definitely looking at some, Will Disley, I don't, if you want to at least, go below what the, because I mean, there's a real good, I don't know what it's going to be right now, but it's going to be hard to get away from it.
The tight end whisper, Kev, so you got to tell the people what they're up against here. Do you feel it?
I don't. I mean, he's been basically touchdown dependent, right? And
yeah.
I mean, he's gotten 12, 50, and 62 yards. Now the last 2 weeks, he's gotten 5 and 6 receptions. So that, that's nice. And at tight end, you're not really needing a ton, but I mean, he's the 2 and 1 touchdowns, or the 3 touchdowns he scored the last 2 weeks, obviously has helped, those numbers quite a bit. And like I said, this matchup is terrific because Arizona has been that bad against tight ends. They've given up 5 touchdowns on the year, most in the league. So there's definitely lots of like there, but I don't know. Like, I think that we could get OJ Howard, who is right there with him, especially if Chris Godwin wasn't able to suit up, who's 3,900. So, I mean, $300 more, and overall probably, not as, not as good of a spot, obviously, but, I don't think it would be awful. Austin Hooper, I have no idea why he's only 4,300. I don't really get it. The dude's been, about as good as you could hope. 16.7, 7.4, and 24.6 last week. So I don't understand that play, but I mean, that's not that far of a difference off of that either. And then, like another team that's been really bad against tight ends is the Chiefs. And we've sort of talked about, that they're going to really have to throw the ball. Now, TJ Hawkinson, after that first big game in the last 2 weeks, has not done really anything. He went from 9 targets week 1 to 3 and 4 each of the last 2 weeks. I have no idea why. That doesn't really make any sense. But this seems like a matchup where they're going to have to get all their pass catchers involved here to keep up with the Chiefs. So, like I said, the Chiefs have not been very good against tight ends on the year. And I think that TJ Hawkinson at 3,300, I think would be interesting. And if Tyler Higbee missed, I think Gerald Everett at 3,200 is also a place you could go. So that's probably what, as low as I would want to go. Maybe Dawson Knox if you wanted to go there at 2,900.
No, Kev, you're up here preaching gospel with TJ Hawkinson. We love that. We love in Gerald Everett. And then you got to go ahead and throw in Knox against the Patriots?
Yeah, why not? Who else do they have there? I mean, they have John Brown.
Yeah.
Right?
Cole Beasley.
Oh, nobody cares about him. Okay.
Don't disrespect Cole Beasley now. Don't disrespect him.
Last week, Dawson Knox, only 4 targets, but 3 receptions, 67 yards and a touchdown. I don't be sleeping on my boy Dawson from Dawson's Creek here. All right.
Oh my God, Kev, you're going to talk about all the Buffalo tight ends before the year is up. Tyler Kroft is there now. Now we're talking about Dawson Knox. Just let well enough be. Just let well enough be.
I don't want to wait for my life to be over. And that how it goes.
Check that out. The TFA fam is going to love that one. Oh man, Kev. Yeah, I hear you. I mean, I love that Gerald Everett call. It looks like Tyler Higbee is going to be back this week, so that should be interesting. But TJ Hawkinson too. I mean, people have forgotten about this guy, and I think that's a mistake. I like this call, and you're talking about it with targeting KC, favorable matchup. Definitely, have interest there. What about a guy like Vernon Davis, 3,400? I mean, Jordan Reed's career might be over. Vernon Davis, back-to-back weeks with 4 targets. He's had some tough matchups going against Dallas, going against Chicago, and now he gets, a Giants team that really has given up some points sneakily to the tight ends as well, too. OJ Howard could have had a smash game last week, but kind of had some plays not go his way. But still was the best game of the season for him. So if a guy like Vernon Davis, especially if McLaurin can't go, he could be seeing an uptick in usage and work on Sunday.
Yeah, it's not a bad call either. I mean, he definitely still has it. I mean, the old man still last week that was hilarious. That where he thought he was gonna who was that? Where he tried to jump, but he was gonna jump over.
Kyle Fuller.
Yeah, Kyle Fuller was like, no, we ain't having that. Like you ain't jumping over me.
It might have been a Mukamura. It was a cornerback. It might have been a Mukamura, but yeah, that was hilarious. I was thinking about the Antonio Brown, pour one out for him, but when he jumped up and just kicked the dude, do you remember that when it was like Mortal Kombat? He just kicked the dude. I was like, wow, is Vernon Davis really about to get ejected right now? But he just kind of let it go, and oh man, that was funny. That was funny.
No, that was hilarious. But yeah, no, I mean, he like I said, I mean, he's not Antonio Gates where he's just out there as a body. Like he definitely still has it. So yeah, I mean, he's another guy you could probably target. And it's crazy with Jordan Reed. They said this week that they expect him to be back this year.
Oh, really? I missed that.
Yeah, which is crazy. Like at some point, you just have to call it a career, man, and just protect yourself.
It really, I mean, I don't know what is going on there, but it just is sickening to see, painful to kind of watch play out because he was just so good when he was out there. And it's unfortunate that the concussions can keep these guys, down and out. But it's something that you can't be messing around with. And especially in the NFL that we're in right now, like it's something that they won't play around with. And it seems like every time he comes back and plays, something else happens. So You definitely have to put health first, and I think the Redskins are doing that with him. So that's good. That's good there. Kev, let's get ready to start wrapping it up. We got defense to talk about left, and then we got to build that Millie team. We need a redemption on the Millie, by the way, Kev, because it's been a rough 2 weeks for us. So we got to look for redemption there. But we got defense to talk about here. Chargers at the top, no surprise. They're going against Miami. It is on the road, 3,800. We usually don't like paying up for the defense, but, we've seen other teams against Miami, like the Cowboys last week, they were 4,300. Now we get the Chargers. They're only 38. It seems like they're able to make some big plays, whether it's fumble recoveries, getting sacks. I don't know if it doesn't look like they have no defensive touchdown this season, but a couple picks there. I just don't know. The game does not feel good to me. I probably won't have much, if any, Chargers D. But I faded the D against Miami with New England, except for in cash, and we saw that played out. So definitely they could pay off dividends. But I'm curious to hear where you're at with defense this week. The Titans D, they're on the road, 2,600. But Matt Ryan, he's dug these holes for himself. He could still be a good GPP play, and Tennessee defense can still hit in the way we want him to, because Matt Ryan's just been giving up the ball. It's ridiculous the amount of interceptions he's already thrown on the season. I gotta pull it up, Kev, because I was looking at it earlier and I couldn't believe it. He's already had 6 interceptions on the season. That's just crazy. So he's turning the ball over in bunches. That could bode well for the Tennessee defense. I'm not trying to shy away from them too much. Bears at home, 3,400 against Minnesota, who could end up being one-dimensional. That could end up paying some dividends. These guys are always looking to score in any capacity, and with Tariq and back there returning punts, it's always a possibility. Rams, you talked about earlier at 35. I love that. I'm trying to see if there's another cheap defense that I was even remotely considering here. I'm curious about the Broncos. They're 2,900. They haven't done anything, and the Gardner Minshew mania is going crazy. But they have to be in a get right spot, don't they, Kev? God. No sacks, no interceptions, no nothing. Jesus, can they do something here? I probably am not going to end up considering them, but this is a defense that I always wanted to target because of their playmaking abilities and the way they were able to get to the quarterback. I guess one other defense would be the Ravens. I just am seeing now that they're 3,200 going at home against Baker, who just hasn't looked on point with any of his throws here. It should be an ugly game. I think this one stays low scoring. So Baltimore, I guess, would be one of the low defense I look to target. Where are you at, Kev?
I wonder, I'm just looking at it. I wonder, does DK know something we don't know, that they have the Chargers only at 3,800? Last week, I think the Cowboys were 4,300 or something like that against them last week. And now all of a sudden, the Chargers, who have, Joey Bosa and, where they can create pressure and a solid secondary, is only 3,800. It seems odd to me. I don't know. Maybe they have some inside information. They are the new, the official sponsor of the NFL now, so maybe they have some inside information that we don't have. But it just is a little low for playing Miami, 3,800. Anyway, I definitely I think you pretty much already hit on the Chargers for sure, the Rams. I definitely think the Broncos are a definite play. They're for one, I mean, they have Von Miller, they have Bradley Chubb. Their defense is too good to be as bad or as non-productive as it's been, right? It's at home. This just feels like a good spot. Everybody's in love with Gardner Minshew, and I feel like this is where he implodes and turns back into Gardner Minshew. And I don't know. I think 2,900, and where they're going to carry very little ownership, and this is the spot to target. You should always be looking to target Denver at home. They're much better at home than they are on the road. This just feels like a spot where they turn the ball over 2 or 3 times. We see a defensive touchdown, 4 or 5 sacks, and people are upset that they didn't play them. So I definitely think Denver is definitely in play. And then if you want to go real low, I think as low as I would want to go would probably be Carolina going with the Panthers. Houston's secondary, or excuse me, offensive line is still trash, and they're just getting Deshaun Watson killed back there. They're always good for maybe giving up 4 to 5 sacks, and then can they turn the ball over once or twice? So this feels like a spot for me where with the Panthers that at 2,300, I definitely have some definitely want some exposure there.
No, I don't mind that call. They are giving up a ton of sacks there in Houston. Already 12 on the year for the Panthers too. So not a bad call there, Kev. That's gonna do it for the week 4 main slate breakdown here on the DGen Nation pod. I didn't even go through the slew of onslaught for you guys of what we usually talk about at the beginning of the pod. You guys got to be rating and reviewing the pod as we release them. They're coming out on iTunes and on Stitcher, and you can listen to it at thefantasyauthority.com. Like, we definitely want you guys showing us some love there, downloading it, rating, reviewing it would be great. We're on Streambird now, so the shows are coming to you live on YouTube, on Periscope, on Twitch. Show us some love there. Subscribe to them. Go back and watch them later. And don't forget about, kind of what we're talking about. I know a lot of the guys in our Slack chat have mentioned going back to listen to the pod and talking about, some of the calls that Kev and I have been on, and Maddie when we had him on the week that we did, and paying up for the Mahomes and KC exposure there. So definitely appreciate everybody who's been showing love thus far, and we want that to continue. And if you're, new to the DJ Nation, or if you've been around here a while, we don't close out any show without building a Millie team. Our first week Millie team was amazing. It was a nuts. It would have cashed in a ton of lineups. In the past 2 weeks, we've been struggling. So, Kev, we owe it to the people to give them a good Millie team that they can enter into their lines. And we got to start it off solid. So, without any further ado, let's get into building that week 4 Millie Maker team, $20 lineup on DraftKings, and let's get to it. Pulling it up right here. Kev, where are we starting it off? I'll let you go ahead and kind of dictate the way the lineup's going to be.
All right. Well, let's see. Let's go with... Let's go with some... You know what? Let's go with Sterling Shepard to start it off.
Okay. I like that. I have a feeling I know where this could be going. Let us... You know what? We'll leave running back alone. I like him this week. Let's go ahead and get in Keenan Allen at 7,600. Another wide receiver. So we got 2 wide receivers right now, Sterling Shepard, Keenan Allen. That leaves us with just about 5,200 per player to fill out the rest of our lineup here.
All right, well, then let's go ahead and lock in Tyler Lockett.
Okay. So if we're going to play Tyler Lockett, I just like the upside of getting him with Russell. He's only 6,100, so a little bit savings there. So let's get Russell Wilson at 6,100 there to pair him with.
Let's get a little weird then. Let's go David Johnson at 6,800.
I don't mind it. I don't mind it at all. So we got Russell Wilson, David Johnson, Sterling Shepard, Keenan Allen, Tyler Lockett. That's leaving us 4,300 left for players. We got to fill out a running back position, tight end, flex, and a defense and special teams. Kev, we got to get exposure to it somehow. So let's go ahead and lock in Darrell Williams at 4,700 to save us some money there. Get exposure to that game.
All right. Well, let's go with the. We could go with Disley and with the stack, or we go with Dawson Knox, or you know what?
Jeez.
Let's go with TJ Hawkinson at 3,300.
Okay, I could get behind that.
We could really do something here, but I'll let you. Which one do you want? You want defense or flex?
I'm gonna go defense, and I'm gonna throw in the Ravens at 3,200.
Oh yes, this might be leaving a little bit too. Oh man, because I was gonna lock in McCall Hardman, but you just happened to leave me just enough for Brandon Cooks.
Your call, Kev. What are we doing?
I feel like this lineup is very risky because we only have one chief, and it's Darrell Williams. But hey, it is a Millie Maker lineup, and this is a GPP, so let's do it. I'll lock in Brandon Cooks.
Brandon Cooks against Tampa in the flex, and just to make sure, Kev, that game is that is a 3:05 game, so we have Brandon Cooks in the later slot just in case we need to pivot or anything like that. But right now, on Thursday night, we're building this team. It's Russell Wilson, David Johnson, Darrell Williams, Sterling Shepard, Keenan Allen, Tyler Lockett, TJ Hawkinson, Brandon Cooks, the Ravens D. That takes up all of our salary that is being submitted. That is in the milli. That is a huge GPP lineup there. Definitely some correlation there with Russell Lockett and David Johnson, but the plays, as Kev was alluding to, only having one KC Chief, but we do have another guy in Detroit there, so hopefully our points come from those guys. And then Brandon Cooks going against Tampa, it could pay off. So definitely just know that that's a GPP lineup if you're looking to use that. We have that locked in right now. We do leave room for pivots just in case. Kevin and I talk up until Sunday lock and see if there's anything that we need to do to change it. And we'll make sure to tweet that out if any changes have been made. But we haven't really made any so far. We kind of just been rolling with the punches and going through going through our plays and letting it be. So we did get some KC exposure that has been killing us in the past because our one lineup did have Pat Mahomes in it, and that really did well. But we'll see what happens this week. So loving that lineup, locking it in. Episode 60 is in the books, guys. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for those who keep listening to us week in and week out. We really appreciate it. Can't believe we're a quarter of the way through the 2019 season, but we love that you're joining with us again. Rating and reviewing the pod, very key. Subscribing to the YouTube channel so that you can get all of the clips that we're putting out there from the Fantasy Authority, DJ Nation as well. Follow us on Twitter at DJ Nation Pod. You can hit up Kevin at Fantasy Route 13 on Twitter. He can get you into our Slack chat if you're just joining us for the first time this week. You can get in the Slack chat and we're talking about showdowns there, primetime slates, the main slate, early slate, afternoon slate. A lot of actions going on there on the Slack chat channel. So we want you guys joining us. Kev, you got anything left for the people before we sign off?
Nope. I was trying to think of something clever, but nope, I don't got nothing.
No, then don't say anything. Week 4, DJ Nation, guys, we're excited to see you next week for week 5 as more teams come on by. We didn't even touch on the teams who are on by this week, but the buys are starting up. So hopefully you guys are out here. You're winning money. You're taking advantage. You're building that bankroll, and we will see you next week for week 5. Signing off for Kevin Rath at Fantasy Route, or for Kevin Steele at Fantasy Route 13, and myself, Ryan Williams at Ryan Alexander _W. It's another edition of the DFS DJ Nation podcast. We out.